Welcome to That's Why We're Friends,
the podcast where we laugh a lot, talk about real life, and hold on to faith through it all.
We're two friends navigating the oldish season of life and celebrating the kind of friendships that make it all a little easier.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, hopeful, or just need a laugh, this podcast is for you.
Pull up a chair and join the conversation. Hey, Cara.
Hey, Sarah.
How's it going? How's your week been?
My week has been great. My weekend was great. Did some fun stuff with my husband and did a crazy, really oldish thing. My daughter was working and she had not had lunch. And so I was trying to be nice and I was just like, I'll go. It was like 2 p.m. and she was starving. And so I was like, I'll go to Chipotle and get you something to eat. And so I went in and I got her food, her lunch, and I had just like taken in a crossbody bag and my phone, and I decided just to pay with Apple Pay. So like clicked it, paid, went to get her fork and stuff. You know how Chipotle, like you have to go down by the drinks and get your fork and stuff and put it in your bag. So I went to do that and I dropped that down in there and I go out to my car and I'm getting in my car and I open up my crossbody bag and I'm like looking for my phone and it's not there. And I'm like, oh no, I left it laying like by the drink station or something. So I go running back in there. I don't see it. I look at the register. I don't see it. And I'm like, where in the world did I put my phone? I had stuck it under my arm. It was literally like in my armpit, like stuck there. I was holding it while I was holding her bag and all her stuff. And I couldn't find it. And I was like, that is seriously such an oldish moment.
I agree. But coupled with you used Apple Pay on your phone, I feel like lowers it a little bit.
Sure.
So it's a good, I feel like, compliment of a little bit oldish, but also a little bit youngish.
Okay.
Because you used Apple Pay on your phone.
So I'm not old.
You're oldish.
I'm just oldish.
There you go. I love that.
How have you been?
Good. Yeah, good weekend. Good. Talked about last week, just a dinner with my oldest, which was super fun, hanging out and catching up on his life. And then time with Paul this weekend was great. I did have a couple of oldish moments. I think it's like front of mind right now because we're getting this started. So we mentioned last time, or I think kind of that we both lead two different like young adult women kind of circle Bible study things with our church. And so I was with some of our girls this week. We kind of had a fun end of summer, kind of go do something fun together. And so we were at the place together and I was like, oh, we need to get a selfie. We need, let's take a picture. And so it was one of those things, like as it was happening, I was like, I actually can't believe this is happening. But it took me, I think on the 4th time I pushed the right button on my phone.
No.
So I do have
you
a
were
new
in
phone.
charge of pushing the button for the selfie?
So that was like mistake number 1. My phone is new, so I had the same phone for like 4 or 5 years, really old. I just got a new one, so a little bit in my defense. But I literally like pushed, they're like, nope, not that one.
Oh,
and then,
no.
Nope, not that one. So as it was happening, I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Like I feel so incredibly oldish. And so that was one. And then the other one was I took my daughter-in-law to the airport this week. And so was going to pick her up. And so I just mapped, I've driven to their apartment before, but only a few times.
Sure.
And I'm not great about directions. I own that. It's fine. So I mapped it. So I'm driving. And as I'm driving, I'm kind of thinking like, I don't remember this being the way. And I will say, most of the time I've driven to their apartment is to take them to the airport. And a lot of times it's early in the morning.
Okay.
So like on their honeymoon and stuff, I picked them up and it was like pitch black. And so, so I'm just like, this doesn't feel right. So I kind of pulled off into a little like apartment complex that wasn't their apartment complex and looked at my phone and it had mapped to my daughter-in-law's location. So like we have location sharing in our family, but she wasn't at home. She was like running an errand. So it was taking me to where she had been when she wasn't there yet. Now she was home.
Wait,
and
so you went into the map and like put in their apartment address.
Well, I typed in her name and it like pulled her up.
Oh.
And so I thought it was going to map to her house.
Yeah.
And didn't. So then I pulled in.
You're just like chasing her all over the city.
Called her and was like, are you at home? And she was at home at that point. And so then I realized, like, under her, I have her old apartment, like, from before they were even married.
Oh, no.
So even my secondary, like, it was just a mess of ridiculousness and just made me feel incredibly old. Thankfully, her old apartment is right by where they live now. And so, and I had left plenty early because that's, I don't know if that's also part of oldish, but that's part of being Sarah.
Yeah.
Is leaving early and having plenty of time. And so we had plenty of time to get to the airport, but it was on my third attempt of getting to the right place. And so it did make me feel just... because it's technology and just the fact that it mapped me to her location and I didn't realize it. And I'm just, blah, 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 driving along. So, and those were back to back. That was like one evening and then the next morning. So I had like a good like 24-hour period of, oldish.
Okay, so I have a question on your new phone. What button are you trying to push to take a picture? Not just the like button at
Cara,
the bottom of the...
I really couldn't even tell you. I know one of the buttons on the side of the phone will take a picture as a selfie.
Yes, that's correct.
Still right now, I'd probably have to press a couple of them to get the right one.
I think I have this right, but I do it wrong all the time.
Okay.
So it's not just you. Because I will, when my son or daughter-in-law FaceTimes me with Lacey, I try to screenshot her little face,
Yes.
And so I accidentally always hit the power and the down, which just turns the phone off. I think it's the power and the up that screenshots. I think. I could be totally wrong on that too. But I think if you're just on a camera, it's the down button that takes a photo.
I can't argue with you because I don't know.
But I for sure turn my phone off more times than I take a photo because I accidentally hit the power button too and the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's the short-term memory thing. Another thing, actually, this was maybe last week. So just random series of events, vehicles that I like had, the one I had when I was 16 and the one I had in college and then the one I had like when I was adult. Basically all the cars I've ever had, the gas tank has always been on the right.
Sure.
That's just how it just worked out that way. Well, the car I have now that I've had for, 3 or 4 years, the gas tank is on the left.
Uh-huh.
And I know this, I'm sitting here and I'm telling you this, but every time I pull into a gas station...
You pull in on the wrong side.
Well, no, but I look to
sure.
check. Because, there's like that arrow,
the little arrow
by the gas tank. I look just to like confirm because I have doubts when I pull in of like, okay, I know it's on the left. Obviously, I'm sitting here telling you, but I have to look to confirm. It's so... I just
what's really funny is that I didn't know that arrow existed for... my whole life, like driving. I never knew that arrow was next to the little gas symbol until maybe 2 years ago. Wow. But I always knew where my gas tank was. Ever since I found out the arrow was there, it's like I second guessed myself. And I've been driving the same car for 5 years, and I know where the gas tank is. But I still second guess myself now. It's so strange.
It is strange.
Yeah.
So
maybe just an oldish thing.
I guess so.
Like being sure.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Safety. I feel like that's safety at a gas station.
Safety and efficiency with our time. I don't want to waste time having to change sides. So.
Well, it's not even a waste of time. It's looking a little foolish to all the people around you. They're like, oh, she didn't know where her gas tank was.
Yeah. So if there's anybody who doesn't know who's listening or watching, when you look at your dash and you know where you're, full and empty, there's a little icon of a gas tank and it'll have a little triangle on either the left side or the right side. That's the arrow that's telling you which side of the car your gas tank is on. Yeah. And so, I don't know when I found that out, but it's been, several years, maybe in my 20s. My dad was a car guy, and so I think maybe...
What's the deal? Why did no one tell us this when we were driving at 16?
That's true, because that's definitely not when I found out. I don't know, maybe it wasn't a thing.
Oh, maybe.
in the 90s?
You think they just started putting that symbol?
I can't answer that question, Cara. There are certain questions I can answer, and there are certain times I'll make something up, but that's one I'm just going to say, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. That's fair.
Maybe someone will educate us.
Yeah.
Email us, comment, let us know
Right.
what we don't know.
Right. Exactly. Well, we did our first episode last week.
We did.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit of get to know you,
Yes.
and we thought that today we would share our faith stories with people just to go deeper to the heart of the matter.
Absolutely.
Of where this podcast is going to go. We definitely want to share our faith on a regular basis, and so we just thought we would give everybody kind of a Cliff Note version, but yet deep.
Okay.
So, Cliff Note enough to pass the test.
Okay.
So, I'm going to let you go first.
Great. So I have a tiny bit of experience with this, and it's going to help me quite a bit because it involves a podcast, and it involves a woman named Christine Kane, who's an author and Christian speaker. And so
Love her.
Yes, she's great.
She is great.
So a lifetime ago, probably 20 years ago, when I was in full-time ministry at a different church, and we hosted a really big conference every year, different speakers, and one of the cool things we got to do on staff was host those people, like, pick them up at the airport and kind of just be their person for the week. And so Christine Kane was coming in to speak at our conference, and then she was actually staying for the weekend and going to do like the weekend messages. And so she was staying for the whole week. She came with her whole family, husband, 2 little girls at the time. So fun, so awesome. And then, kind of a little people that they had of just, assistant and a lady who helped with the kids. And it was so nice, so fun. The 2 other girls that were there, kind of their assistants, were my age and single, and I was single. And so it was so much fun, such a fun week. She was so nice, and just really hit it off with their whole team and just really, really enjoyed it. So the end of the week, and she had a podcast. She may still have one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But at the time she did. And at the end of the week, and she had brought up the podcast and was like, oh, I'd, love to, interview you, just because of, I don't know, being in ministry or single. I don't even remember. I don't know why. But of course I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay. And I taught some at our church, and so I definitely had some, pie in the sky ideas about, being in ministry and teaching and, being like Christine Kane and going all over the world. And so I'm like, could this, be it? Like, I'm going to be on Christine Kane's podcast and then all these things. And so I was still very young. I was still in my 20s. And so they were in like a family, kind of sweet hotel thing with, because they had their kids and these people. And so, we sat down on like a couch in this room. And
wait, you did the interview just like, she was like, I want to interview you, and you just did it.
Yes. So it was not video. So it was a lot more like low key. I think she just had her phone and like pressed something and just, started recording.
Okay.
And so she asked me one question. I think it was just a general, you can see where this is going, general, just, tell me a little bit about your story, basically your Jesus story or whatever. Okay, it still makes me warm in places to have to tell this, but I proceeded to launch into like a 30-minute monologue of just my life story. It was like therapy and a one-woman show all wrapped up in one.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like I just so lacking self-awareness and maturity, and I was just still so just hungry for affirmation. And she just got the complete like raw.
And as you're talking, what is her face doing?
I don't care. I just don't even think. Obviously I wasn't thinking about that because I was just so into giving her just every single piece of information of my entire life story. It's mortifying. And so however much time passed, literally she only asked me one question. And so I get to, the end of the one woman show, and she was so kind and she was so gracious, and she was like, awesome in her like awesome like Australian accent. Well, thanks. I think I'm going to go, they've got the kids ready for bed. I haven't seen them all week. I'm going to get them like tucked in. I mean,
she was literally like stopped the recording.
It was been 30 minutes and there was nothing usable in this my goodness, vomit Sarah. Of information. And so again, so nice. And I'm pretty sure the next day, I took them all to the airport and could not have been more like gracious and friendly. And I remember, I think I only told like the girl who I officed with at work that time that it even happened because I had a feeling like that's not a podcast.
Right.
Like that's just one person rambling for 30 minutes. And so everyone watching, listening is like, yes, I understand. I feel like it's happening again. And so there was nothing that ever, came out. I followed her podcast for, a few weeks to kind of see if there, I was going to have my moment.
You were hoping you were at least a clip.
Nothing. So, so I will not do that.
Okay.
And so all that to say, my faith journey, I think, generationally, this isn't off to a very good start.
It's fine. This is what this is about. Okay. The podcast is about what I've always loved about podcasts, especially when I listen to one that has multiple hosts. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that I kind of feel like I'm their friend just sitting at a table having coffee. Sure. And this is what women do. Yes. We ramble. We tell stories that go down 1,000 rabbit trails, and it's good. Okay. And I think everyone loves that. Okay.
We probably should adopt some sort of a signal, though, that you can at least like communicate to me when it's like, okay, I have to cook dinner.
I'll just be like,
yeah,
like put a rooster sign up. For people listening, they don't know what I did, but I put a little rooster sign over my head.
Yes. So there was, I would just say there was some faith elements coming into our family, like just from grandparents and stuff. And so my parents attended, we attended church as a family in Lubbock, Texas, just a little, Baptist church. My parents got divorced when I was around 5 or 6. And so there were faith elements there. And my dad always told me, and I believe him because, why not? That when I was around 5 or 6, he had a conversation with me because he wanted to make sure that I knew that I could, invite Jesus into my heart, which was a very 80s phrase that we all said back then. That I could do that at any time. I didn't have to be at church at an altar call. I didn't have to go down front. Mm-hmm. And he says that when we had that conversation that I said, "Oh, Daddy, I already did that. Like I'd already asked Jesus into my heart." Okay. And so I can look back on that season and then the season that followed it. And I can definitely see where the Lord was with me because there were just a lot of hard things that followed in the next, 10 years. But there wasn't, because, they got divorced a few years after that. My mom and I moved to the Dallas area. My dad and my brother stayed in Lubbock. There was just a lot of just shifting circumstances. Both my parents remarried. And then, those marriages there were just multiple marriages. And my parents were both great people. We all have our struggles. And so there was just a lot of, shifting. And so I would go to church when I was with my dad, but didn't go to church when I was with my mom. And so there was something there, but certainly not an idea of like how to live every day, like and follow Christ. Mm-hmm. So, middle school was very, very tough for me, just finding my people and feeling like I didn't really fit anywhere. And, so, the stories you hear about just getting in with the wrong crowd and drugs, and that was all just a part of my journey, starting in middle school. And then I had become friends with a girl really in 6th grade, but we ended up really close freshman year of high school. And she was a Christian, and I knew that, and just loved her because she was nice to me, even though we were in completely different, worlds, with people and stuff in school. And she got sick the end of our freshman year, and to the point where we found out this one particular day in the class that we had together that a virus had attacked her heart, and she was having to have a heart transplant like that day. Yeah. And it was, terrifying and devastating and all the things. And I remember that night, the night of her surgery, just being gripped with fear for her. But also it ended up becoming fear for myself because of this idea that you could go into this and just die. Like there's, especially at the time, this was in the 90s, there, weren't always great survival rates, and especially in a young person. And so I just remember being afraid for her and afraid for me and afraid of dying myself. And I remember going that night, like late in the night, and, crying and talking to my mom about just I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of dying. And it was just such a God moment because, her advice to me was, not right in that moment because it was, 10 o'clock at night, but I think we should go to church like this weekend. And so the surgery ended up being, she survived the surgery, and I went to church that weekend, and they happened to be signing up for a church camp that was going to this was in April. And so they were going to do a church camp that summer. Ended up going to that church camp where I, did kind of do the go down front and do all the things and get baptized. And so that was, a pivotal point in my life. Our friendship, we became really good friends after that. And I kind of started hanging out with some different people. But what I found out when I got, closer in those groups was there were, some of those people went to church, but they definitely weren't really like living a Christian life. Right. It was just really wasn't very different from the not good people right. I had hung out with. And I, spent some time doing church stuff. But I had a kind of a not great experience. I shouldn't sugarcoat it. One of the older guys in the youth group kind of, took advantage of, just physically, sexually, and just had a really bad experience, and just was like, okay, well, life doesn't feel very different in church with church people versus out of church without church people. And so after about, I don't know how much time had passed, a year of trying to do those things, kind of just drifted back to like, I believe in God, but that was just kind of it. So that was the journey all through high school, college, really struggled a lot with just identity, food. So, there was a hole in my heart. And I did believe in God and I prayed, but I just never had any tools of what is following Jesus, what is being a disciple today and tomorrow look like. And so it wasn't until I was in my early 20s, graduated from college, had just really had some issues with substances and food and just all the things, that I found myself back in the Dallas area where I am now, and really just finally at my bottom. And I was living in a house that my dad had owned, but he was living in a different house with his wife at the time. And so I was all alone in the middle of nowhere, and I had an encounter with the Lord that night. And it was freezing cold. It was winter time, and the heater was messed up at the house. And so it made all this noise when it came on. So I had to have it off in order to sleep because it was right outside the window. And so I just remember getting out of bed and just praying, of like acknowledging, okay, God, I want my life to be different. It's not going well the way that it's going. And I felt like I just kind of had this sense that like I had to take this opportunity, or there might not be another one. Like it wasn't this fearful, like threatening thing, but I just felt like I need to take this chance, and I want to. And so I got out of bed and I got down on my knees and I just like cried out to the Lord. And I remember, because it was so cold and because the heat wasn't on, that all of a sudden I felt warm, like not hot. It wasn't uncomfortable. I just felt warm, and I just felt like it was the presence of the Lord. And I grabbed a journal and I wrote like a message. Like it was really bizarre because I didn't even have words to say that, but it was something that I just could imagine myself saying to a lot of people. And I had never thought about, teaching or anything like that. Obviously, definitely not, preaching or, teaching about God. But I feel like, do have the gift of teaching, and I feel like for me that was kind of a moment of like receiving just, you know, those gifts of the Spirit, and so I wrote that out and just was very, I just kind of knew everything just shifted in that moment. And so my dad was very involved in a church in the area, and so I, you know, reached out to him, found out about that church, and that's the church I ended up, a year later I was on staff. I mean, it just snowballed in the best way from there. I think the Lord knew I was all in, I was ready. And it wasn't like from that day forward, I, you know, had it all figured out. Certainly not. There was a lot of just working through, but I was moving in one direction at that point. So that was when I was around 23 or 24. So, you know, when did I get saved? That's such a big question we always ask, especially if you came out of the church in, you know, the 80s or the 90s. And I'd have to ask the Lord. You know, I believe in what my dad said happened when I was 5. I know what my heart wanted when I was 16. But when I was, you know, 23 was when I was really ready to like surrender and say, you know, Jesus, you can have it all.
Right.
I don't want it. I don't want to be in charge anymore. And I would say that's really when life got good. And that's when the healing started. And that's when just the community and the godly relationships. And so that I was on staff for 10 years and just had an amazing experience just growing up at that church, I feel like, because I feel like I learned how to become an adult. I learned how to work hard and enjoy work and teach and all the things. Great foundation. And then when I was 35, just felt God moving me, which was very, very difficult because that was my life, my family, that was everything. But it was just through very clear circumstances that we were doing something else, and ended up at Valley Creek where I am now. And so those have kind of been really just my two homes, my two churches. Since we've really been walking with the Lord, and super grateful for both, and love where I am now, and obviously met my husband and my kids, and can't imagine life any other way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do feel like...
How was that? The sun's still up, so we did good.
That was great. That was perfect. Perfect Cliff Notes. Feel like I could take a test.
Okay, good.
I feel like it's amazing how God weaves all the things of our life together. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not just like, okay, well, you were 5 and you asked Jesus into your heart, and then everything was up and to the right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, that's not exactly how the Christian walk goes ever. For I don't know anyone who goes up and to the right all the time.
Right.
And
and no one in Scripture. That's no one's story in the Bible.
Valid.
So why should we think that would be anyone's story?
Yeah, in fact, I think most of the people in the Bible that we look up to as heroes of faith probably couldn't get a job on church staffs today because, you know, just
because of their history.
The lives they
wouldn't pass a background check.
Murdering people and
adultery,
all the things.
Yes.
So, they wouldn't pass a background check for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's very sweet to hear just, you know, a little bit of how the Lord wove your story together. And
and I will say, you know, like I said, that my dad was always kind of the anchor of that. And it's never about being perfect. And, you know, my dad had his struggles, but he was always the place I could go for questions. I remember when I asked him about dinosaurs, when I first started like reading the Bible and trying to understand, I was like, I remember calling him like, okay, where did dinosaurs fit in all this stuff? And how did Moses and all the people in the Old Testament, you know, are they in heaven or where? And so, you know, he was always that foundational piece. I knew that was the foundation of his life, even though it didn't mean, you know, like you said, he didn't have an up and to the right. Like he had his own struggles, and but he was always that anchor point where I could go and come back to. And so that was a great part of our relationship.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, mine was similar in some ways. Funny.
That's why we're friends.
That's why we're friends. I was born to a single mom though, and she tells me the story that, I mean, I definitely have, you know, family history. My grandparents loved the Lord. They were in church. My mom was definitely a believer, you know, got saved, if we're going to use that word, as a child, baptized, was in church. But she moved from a tiny town in East Texas in her 20s to work in Dallas. got out of church, just started living a little bit of a different life. And she had me, and then I guess until I was 3, we weren't in church. We might have gone to a couple, but obviously I don't remember. I think she maybe has mentioned that in some stories. But when I was 3 years old, the church we ended up at had a bus route. And they sent people around on Saturday mornings, to take the kids on the bus, right? Ask the parents, can we take your kids on the bus? And my mom was like, no, you're not taking my child on a bus. I don't know you, and you're not taking her to a strange church, but I'll come and I'll bring her. And so she started going to that church when I was 3, and it just instantly became our home. And it was a very small church. And so the families in that church became my family, right? And it was a Baptist church, and we were just a very close-knit, tight group of people, which was sweet. I love the fact that those are my memories, and that so many of my mom's friends from way back then, like the ones that have not passed away, are still like in our lives. She still keeps in touch with them. I still keep in touch with them. Some of my best friends were made in that church. So we started going there when I was 3. Similar, so that church had a private Christian school, and my mom worked really hard to be able to afford to send me to that school. So I started going there in kindergarten and went there through 5th grade. And in kindergarten, I remember distinctly the day my kindergarten teacher was praying for whatever. And I was like, this is it. I'm asking Jesus into my heart today. And so I remember I started to ask him into my heart, and she ended her prayer. And I was just like, okay, gotta go. Like, I was just like, I can't get in trouble for still having my eyes closed while she's done praying. So it just was a quick ending to my, like, Jesus come into my heart. And then it was like over.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
But I can still see myself sitting there. I know the moment when it happened. And then I remember getting baptized soon after that. Told my mom, but I also remember that every VBS, every, church camp, I would still quietly sit in my chair and do the prayer again, just in case I didn't do it right the first time.
Yes.
Because I wasn't sure I did it right the first time. And I really did love the idea of this God and Jesus who were perfect and loved me. But I knew that I didn't behave enough to earn that love. And even though I was in a church that would preach grace, it was, whether it was my child mind that didn't understand grace, or whether there was this unspoken, yes, there's grace, but you still have to follow the rules kind of thing. Somewhere in my childhood, I believed that, yes, I was saved by grace, but I still had to follow the rules. Right. I still had to behave. I still had to be good. And if I didn't, then I needed to sort of not be in God's presence till I could behave again. So that started a cycle for me, which I'll come back around to here in a minute. But grew up in this church, loving people. I don't really remember much bad about my childhood, which I think I'm so fortunate that I really loved my childhood. Yeah. But I didn't have a dad. And one of the things that I prayed for every night, I can distinctly remember going to bed and praying for a daddy. And so when I don't really know, 13, 14, our pastor's wife, unfortunately, got breast cancer and passed away. And over the next, again, the timeline is fuzzy for me because I was a kid and I wasn't really paying attention. Yeah. But over the next year or so, the pastor and my mom began talking, began dating, and got married when I was 15. And so he became my dad, and I was like overjoyed. I finally had a dad and someone who, number one, I had known my whole life, right, as my pastor, and knew his kids and knew his wife, and I had been in their home. I remember staying with them one time when my mom had to go to town. So they were part of my life. So it wasn't like this man was a stranger to me. So he became my dad, and life was great, during the time that he was alive. Jeff and I got married. We got married when I was really young. I was 19. But my dad died when I was 21. And so I just remember feeling this overwhelming, like, I don't understand you, God. Like, what? I asked you for a dad. You gave me a dad. Here we are. And you let him die. Like, what's going on here? And so it wasn't like I was mad at God. I was just very confused and just continued living life, being the good girl, the church girl, going to church, pretending like everything was fine in life, kind of just struggling through the whole like being newly married, being young. Then a year later, we had a baby. Things don't get easier when you have a baby. I think we thought in our heads our marriage was rocky, and I think we thought, oh, well, this will make it easier. And my dad died. Let's have a baby. Like, I don't know what we were thinking, but we did. And he's a blessing. But keep fast forwarding. I got really sick in 2008 and was really, really sick for 3 years and having a lot of health issues. Ended up finding a doctor that helped me get on a path to getting well. And in that getting well process, I was physically like getting better, but the Lord was showing me some things about myself emotionally and spiritually that were sick and broken. And so he took me on this interesting 3-year journey. It was interesting that I was sick for 3 years and then I got well. And then there was this next like 3-year journey that he took me on. And right after I started feeling better, I remember we were at something for my husband, like a work event. And the room was very full and crowded. My husband was being honored for something. So everybody was sort of like pouring this praise on him. And I was kind of just standing back, like taking it all in, watching. And I didn't really know like a lot of people. So I was sort of like watching this room, and I wasn't even thinking about my dad. I had spent the previous 16 years asking God almost daily, like, why did you take my dad? And I wasn't really thinking about him. We're at this event and I hear a voice in my head that I know was God. I know his voice when I hear it. It wasn't audible. It was inside of my spirit. And he said, I will never tell you why I took your dad, but I'll show you what I did for good in your life from it. And I was like, what? I mean, I kind of was just like, what was that? Where did that come from? And why did that come now?
Yeah.
But what he did, he took me on this 3-year journey, and he began to show me all this good that had occurred in my life, not because of my dad's death, but things he had done through that event. And so, but what happened at the end of that kind of the culmination of that 3 years of him just showing me some things and pouring truth and identity over me is that he took me back far into the beginning of my life. And he said, like, you asked me for a dad all this time. All this time you've asked me why I took your dad. And what you missed all along was that I was your father from the very beginning. And so I was like, wow. And that was the point at which I really realized my identity was rooted in him. You know, that even though I had had lots of not up into the right moments, lots of setbacks in my life, lots of difficulties in my life, I realized that he really had placed his identity on me at an early age and that I was his. And it was at that point that I believe that the freedom began to happen in my heart, like to break away from the I have to behave kind of rules, you know, and he's just been so gracious ever since that time to just continue to pour more truth over me. And I can so easily slip back to sort of my root of wanting to be like, I gotta behave. I disappointed God. I can't come into his presence because I'm not right with him right now. And thankfully he's been so kind to show me like, that's not actually just when you mess up, it's actually better just come and sit with me and be with me. Right. That's such a hard thing. But one of the things that manifested in was my disordered eating and how I would not approach God when I felt like I'd been bad with my food, you know? And so that was just in that 3-year journey. That was one of the things he healed me from was like, you know, your food can't make you good or bad. Like my righteousness is what makes you good. Right. And so it's just, he's been so kind to just call out truth in me because I so easily forget. I have such a fickle mind, and I feel like I'll sit in his presence and I'll read his word or he'll give me revelation, this morning at 5 a.m. and by 5 p.m. tonight, I've forgotten. I'm just so fickle. And so I just really and truly am so grateful for his kindness and how he's brought me to where I'm at now and spoken truth over me and just brought me like this freedom to live fully in him. And I'm loving it. So yeah, I know.
That.
So he's so good. And just this morning I read, I was reading the passage that says we have the mind of Christ. And it's like these passages, of course, the Bible, it's living and active, and it catches you when you need it, right? Mm-hmm. And read that passage thousands of times, I'm sure. And, but I was struck by that. I have the mind of Christ. Mm-hmm. And so everything that comes into my life, every situation that I deal with, everything that I am approaching, the way people interact with me, I have the mind of Christ. And I have the ability to deal with whatever is in front of me because I have his mind and I have his spirit and he's inside of me. So, yeah.
I love that. Wow. So good. I love that you talked about his kindness because I think the older I get, the longer I, walk with God and know him, that's the thing that I am struck by more and more is just his kindness. Right. Like his just those moments that are just me and him that nobody else would really understand fully. And we all have those moments like that God can show us his kindness because that it's just for you. Like, and that someone else wouldn't get it the exact same way because it's something that happens that I never even audibly put into a prayer, but it was there, but I never really did. And then here it comes. Yeah. And so he's so specific and so kind. And that's the thing that I think I just become more and more aware of over time is just how incredibly kind he is. And how he, I think with both of us and everybody in everyone's journey is that he pursues us. Yeah. He's that loving father who is with us all along. And he does. I mean, you reference kind of the Romans 8:28 of making all things good. Yeah. Even those hard seasons, there will be good that he can bring out of it. And that's everybody's story in some form or fashion is, he's pursuing us and he's trying to use the things that we do or that, happen to us to bring us to him. Right. And so I love that.
Well, and it's funny that you say that Romans 8:28 has been my life verse.
Well, there you go.
All my life, which is so interesting, right? And I think that's why when he spoke to me and said, I'll show you what I've done for good, it was like, okay, well, that's the verse you claim. Yeah. Let me use that language back and which is just another kindness.
His kindness. Yeah. Yes. Do this in a way that you'll
He's just so kind. And I think too, in the culture in which we live, if we don't take the time to slow down and sit in his presence, it's super easy to miss his kindness, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think the more we can really sit with him, focus on him, and learn his character, the more we see his kindness, even in our busyness, even in our day-to-day routine, right? Doesn't always then become just the moment where we're sitting with our Bible and journal and everything in the world is perfect. It becomes those little moments where we're driving in our car, where we're rushing, where we have a brief encounter with a stranger at the store. It's those kinds of things where we see his kindness more and more when we've already focused on him and we already are just like pursuing him. Then we can see more of what he's doing and where he's moving.
Yes. It's the new car thing. It's, you get a new car and all of a sudden you realize every other car on the road is like your car.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just because you have an awareness now. And so when we're open to something, we have an awareness, then we're going to see it more. It's biblical. We will find what we seek for. Right. And so when we're aware of him and we're looking for him, we're going to see him all day, every day. So it's not... the variable isn't him. He doesn't vary. The variable is us. Yeah. And so, and we all move in and out of those seasons. And when we're in it, we think, okay, well, how could I ever not do what I'm doing right now? Right. That's caught in, life comes and happens, and that's his grace to move us through those seasons. But, yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
yay,
sweet. Yes. Okay, well, tell me what you're going to do this week to enjoy the life God gave you.
So I'm very excited. I'm actually doing this tomorrow. Some friends and neighbors and former coworkers, someone I used to work with. They go to our church. They live 2 doors down from us, and we love them. They just got a new puppy.
Yeah.
And the husband is out of town.
And you're a sucker for a puppy and a baby.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I am too.
Who isn't?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just,
weirdos.
Again, part of God's... Well, I mean, that's God's genius. Like, if puppies and babies weren't so cute, the whole world would have died out in one generation. Right. So he knows what he's doing. And so so he's out of town. And so, I mean, it's like she's 8 weeks old, I think, the puppy. So she's like puppy.
She's teeny tiny.
And so the wife, she's got something she's going to do tomorrow morning. And so I told her when I knew he was out of town and that that she's brand new, I was like, it sounds like I'm just, being a good neighbor, but they really are selfish. I mean, I get to hang out with a puppy for 2 hours.
Oh, I know, they're so sweet.
I know. And
everything
so I'm going over there in the morning and just hang out with the puppy for a couple hours. So again, it's like, oh yes, I'm so nice and I'm such a good neighbor. It's like, sure. But also I'm going to go hang, and it's like babysitting. It's like, I don't have to do the night duty. Like she's having to get up in the middle of the night, so
puppies are,
I didn't offer to do that. So I'm not that like nice of a person, but if she needed it, I'm sure we would figure it out. But so I'm just, I know that may sound like so small and so silly, but I think that's kind of part of why we want to even do this, to call attention of like, it's going to be fun. Like I love puppies and I get, 2 hours to hang out and just play with this puppy. And so, I'm super,
that's fun. Puppies, I will say, I think puppies are harder than babies. I really do. I've had babies and I've had a puppy and Scout, the dog we have now, he's the only dog that I've actually ever loved. Our other dogs previously were dogs that my husband wanted, and I didn't care about having a dog. We had little kids. I didn't have time for a dog.
Sure.
So the dog was just like another mouth to feed to me. But this, our dog Scout, like I love him so much. But I remember just thinking like, this is way harder than babies. The only good thing about a puppy is that you can put them in their kennel and leave.
And nobody's going to call CPS on you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so anyway.
Awesome.
That's sweet.
So great. So what are you doing this week to enjoy the life that God gave you?
One thing I'm looking forward to this week is my son and my sister-in-law have birthdays that are just 3 days apart.
Oh, fun.
And I love it when we do our joint family like birthday dinners. Mm-hmm. So that's this week. So it'll be my sister-in-law and her kids and my kids and everybody and both our moms, and so it's fun. Because my dad died so long ago, and my husband's dad died so long ago, we have since my early 20s, our moms, we've always done all holidays, all birthdays and everything together. So our moms have sort of become almost like sisters.
That's fun.
So we do all the events together. Sometimes people, because my sister-in-law will say that my mom is her mother-in-law, and people are like very confused by the whole thing. But it works. It works.
Yeah, family's family.
Yeah.
Whatever, whoever is there.
So it's fun.
And so
so I'm excited about that. And my sister-in-law is very kind. She always lets my son pick the restaurant, and he picked a Mexican food place that I love. So I'm not sad about that either.
No, that sounds great.
And it'll be at the end of our week-long fast, and so I'm not sad about chips and guac.
No, that's perfect timing.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing how that goes next time. And so we just encourage you, if you're listening or watching, to go enjoy the life that God has given you.
That's right. All right. See you next week.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today on That's Why We're Friends.
We hope you laughed, felt encouraged, and are walking away with a little more hope for your day.
If you love this episode, make sure to follow the podcast so you never miss what's next.
And share it with a friend who needs a little encouragement, because that's why we're friends.
Some products or services we mention may be paid promotions. Any advice shared should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Our conversations and opinions are meant for encouragement and entertainment only.